What an NBA draft lottery to remember. For the San Antonio Spurs, it went very well. They were able to go ahead and secure that second lottery pick from the Toronto Raptors, who I don't care what anyone says, they wanted that pick. They wanted this pick. They tanked their butt off to try to keep this pick. So, there's value there at the number 8th pick. We're going to talk about players that might fall into that category. Let's look at that right here. We have that list right here of players who are going to be expected to be around 8. And then we're going to kind of also go through the top 6 guys, perhaps that are on this list, guys like Alex Sarr, Nikola Topic, and some of these other dudes that might be off the board by pick number 4 for the Spurs. But nonetheless, we never know how that's going to shake out, so it's good to kind of cover these guys as well. Now, I will be doing a more in-depth draft preview on some of these guys. I will do a mock draft in the future. I will kind of put out some more scenario videos, some more kind of topical videos on maybe one draft potential draft pick at a time. But for right now, let's just get a bird's eye view of with who these players are at pick number 4. We might be able to snag some of these players at pick number 8 as well, and then some of my expectations on what the Spurs are going to choose to do down the road. And I don't know anything. I don't know what the Spurs are up to. But there's definitely a lot of ways that this can play out, especially with Atlanta. Taking the number 1 pick just kind of threw a whole new color on this thing that we weren't expecting. Because obviously we have a lot of history with Atlanta through the DeJounte Murray trade and all the picks that we have from them. And then the players that they have, DeJounte and Trae Young, there was reports for that the Spurs and them and the Atlanta were talking about Trae Young. So now this is just, the possibilities are kind of endless. But I think, starting off with just these 2 picks, let's see what we're looking at with these 2 picks to evaluate this road, this path, and see if it's anything that we like, or if it's something maybe we feel we can get something better out of maneuvering these picks in the future. So let's just jump right into it and look at these top 4 at these top players that might be around for pick number 4. Obviously, Alex Sarr is a projected number 1 pick. You got Nikola Topic, who's a European point guard, French point guard, great IQ. You got Rob Dillingham, who's a point guard from Kentucky. You got Zachary Richeshire, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but another tall, lanky forward out of France. And then you got Donovan Clingan, best big man probably in college basketball from UConn. And then you also have the G League Ignite, Matas Muzelis, who's another just very raw, high potential type pick. So these are the guys that we'd be looking at pick number 4. I'm sure the Spurs will have their big board, have them in some type of order in which they like the most. Obviously, Alex Sarr is the one that is most coveted. He's 7'1" power forward / center out of France, very versatile, can do a lot of things on the floor. It can probably impact a team day one. If we look at some of his strengths, he's a young kid. He's got great instincts on the defensive end, a great assist to turnover ratio, but his defensive rebounding can use some work. The steals can use some work, and his defensive rating needs to improve there a little bit. 9.6 points. 70% from the free throw line. That's not that bad. He's a sub 30% shooter from 3, shooting 50% from the field. Doesn't really jump off the page for me. But when you look at him play, you can just tell that there's something there to this kid. Most likely, he's not going to be there around pick number 4. Next, we have Nikola Topic, who's a great point guard. Obviously, if you look at his strengths on the left side of that column, he's got a lot of them. Defensively, that's probably where he needs to work on. He's kind of a thinner build, but he can get 15 points per game, 5.7 assists per game. That's one of the things that stand out quite a bit. He's 6'6", 201 pounds. He's just got a great feel for the game. So great passing IQ, setup player. Have to work on some other pieces of his game. Another player, though, that, might not be there. And then third is, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Zachary Richeshey. I don't know. I really like him, though, too, when I'm looking at film on him. He's a 6'9" small forward out of France. So, these guys have high potential. Obviously, they need to work on a lot of things. If you look at his weaknesses, it's rebounding, assist, offensive rating, defensive rating. It's just like everything. He's just completely raw package. But he put up 10 points, three and a half rebounds, shot 38% from 3, shot 46% from the field, 71% from the line. So he has a nice touch, nice IQ on him. It's another one of those very high fundamental French players. that we can maybe see slipping to 4. I think maybe that's a possibility, and that kind of depends on how some of these guys go down, right? And this is a fan favorite from what I see. A lot of people talking about how they love the fit of Rob Dillingham with the Spurs playing with Wimby. I mean, he's got a bag to him. He's got great instincts. He's fast. He has like this kind of tenacity to him. He's a pretty decent shooter at 44% from three. So, he's a smaller guard at 6'3", but he can really stroke it. 15 points a game in college, 3.9 assists to 2 turnovers. That's a great ratio. Obviously, a lot of these guys are going to have the same weaknesses in terms of like defensive effectiveness, right? But he's the third rank point guard in this draft, behind Nikola Topic, who we just talked about a few picks ago, and then also Reed Shepard, who we'll talk about in a moment. So not too bad there. Now, if we look at Klingon, Donovan Klingon, he is a big dude, probably the best big man in the college basketball. He's the number one center ranked in this draft. He's 7'2", 265. I think he resembles a lot of that Kessler Walker player in Utah that we saw come out of Alabama a few years. I think that's probably a role that he can fit into right away. Now for the Spurs, would they be looking to replace a Zach Collins and uh, Jaden Orozco to the office? Jaden Orozco to the office. Would they be willing to kind of look to shore up that center spot? That's a question moving forward. I mean, they do have Wembanyama there right now, but I think we can all agree that the Spurs would like to experiment with Wemby playing at the 4 moving forward. So maybe this is a look that they go to. Finally, here in this kind of first part of this video, you got Matas Buzelis, who's a 6'11" small forward. He's got, I think, a lot of touch. He's very raw. 14 points per game in the G League. Shot 26% from three. That's not all that impressive. 69% from the free throw line. His stats really don't jump out the page for you. But he's the second ranked small forward in this draft, and that's because he's like a ball of clay right now. He's just so young, and he really needs to. I think he's one of those guys that needs like another 2 seasons once he gets into the NBA. But then once you kind of get to that middle of his first contract, his third year, that's when you kind of expect him to kind of be to take shape of what he's actually going to be in the NBA, which I'm not really too sure what that is yet. So let's move on to pick number 8 and who we're looking at here. We got guys like Stephon Castle, Ron Holland, Reed Shepard, Cody Williams, Jacoby Walter, and Dalton Connect. These are all guys that are expected to be drafted around that 6 to 10 range, 6 to 12 range. So let's go ahead and kind of get into some of these guys. You got Stephon Castle out of UConn, who put up 11 points per game, shot 26% from the three-point line, not all that great, 2.9 assists per game. He's the fourth rank kind of point guard in this draft, if you can call him a point guard. I don't know if that's kind of where he's going to be in the NBA. But for the Spurs, at least, I think selecting Stephon Castle at number 8 isn't something that we're going to see likely happen, at least on my end. You got guys like Ron Holland, who's another Ignite guy, 19 and a half points per game, 6'8" small forward / power forward. So kind of that in-between forward guy, kind of reminds me a little bit of Keldon there. 6.7 rebounds. And that's another small forward that we're going to be looking at as we kind of go through this draft. Now, this is kind of another interesting player to consider for the Spurs. He's just he's an offensive shooter. He's got a lot of game to him. If you look at all his strengths on the side of the screen, you got all his percentages that are high: his 3-point percentage, field goal percentage. He gets after it. He had 2.5 steals per game, 4.5 assists. So great IQ there on both sides of the floor. 6'3" though, right? 6'3" shooting guard. That's the only kind of thing. He's a little undersized. So for the Spurs, I mean, I think you're looking at incorporating him off the bench if he's someone that you're looking at moving forward. So I don't know, a shooter. Now, Cody Williams is one of the guys that I kind of want to keep an eye on, and as he goes through these draft processes like the combine and all that, because I want to see what his measurements are. I want to see kind of what's ahead of him. He's another kind of guy who's like a year or two away. This is Williams. Jalen Williams' brother, right, from OKC. This is his younger brother. Jalen Williams was like a 22, 23-year-old player coming out of the draft. Cody Williams is a 19-year-old. He'll be 19 when he gets drafted. Um, he's like the fourth or fifth ranked small forward in this draft, but I just like his length. I like his athleticism. I think he can get after it in a couple different ways. So I kind of want to see what the deal is with Cody Williams moving forward. And as I go through a lot of more of his tape, he's someone that's going to be on my kind of watch list as we go through all this and see if the Spurs end up reaching out to him or not. Another guy that I like is Jacoby Walter, 6'5" shooting guard. Has a lot of game to him, 14 and a half points. So he was a bucket in college, 4.5 rebounds. He was able to get after it. Now I kind of want to see, again, if the shooting guard spot is something that the Spurs are going to look for or not. At pick number 8, I kind of doubt it. We're kind of heavy in the guard area right now, but I mean, if this kid has something to him defensively, we'll find out. I'm going to go through more film on all these guys, but these are just kind of the ranked players around this spot. Now here we have our Dalton Connect guy, who's the interesting thing about him is that he's old. He's an older player. He's 23 years old, so he's more of a cooked, ready to go, ready to eat type of meal. He's going to come in. He dropped 21 points per game for Tennessee, which is very impressive. 5 rebounds, almost 2 assists per game. So this guy can just shoot the ball. The age is going to hurt him a little bit. To me, I see, maybe him falling to 10, 12, 13. I kind of feel like, I think, snagging him at 8, a 6'6" kind of small forward who can score, kind of like a DiVincenzo type guy. DiVincenzo got drafted, I think, like 17 or something like that his year, and I kind of see Dalton Connect kind of doing something similar there. Christian Brown, right, type player. So we'll see what happens with that if the Spurs are looking for a shooter, scorer at that small forward position. Now, what my expectations are is like, dude, I have no idea, and things got so interesting so fast on Sunday afternoon. First off, with the 2 picks. Now, I think a route most likely to kind of expect from the Spurs is a route where they keep both picks. They keep them on the rookie scales. They got 2 guys that are going to be in the gym for the next 4 or 5 years, 2 lottery type players, and they try to maximize them over the next 2 to 3 seasons to try to build around Wembanyama. And I just think that's the most Spursiest thing to do. So that's just what I feel like they'll do. Another option is that they end up looking to trade one of the 2 picks. Um, you know, we're talking about Trae Young. Talks are going to heat up with Atlanta. That's kind of what I feel like is going to happen too. I just feel like it's inevitable for something to happen in this draft with Atlanta and San Antonio in terms of maybe swapping picks, maybe letting go of our 8th pick. Uh, for one of their players, the 8th pick plus one of their own picks from the past, right? We have plenty of Atlanta picks. We have 3 over the next 3 years. We have a pick, a swap, and another pick over the next 3 years. So I'm sure Atlanta might want to do something with that now that they have the number 1 pick. Maybe Trae Young is kind of open. Maybe he is on the market. DeJounte Murray, obviously, they were both kind of in the rumors last offseason or last trade deadline, that a lot of teams were in conversations about those guys. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows what Atlanta's plans are, but it could be intertwined with what our plans are. You know what I mean? So, we'll have to see how that shakes out. But I don't really kind of foresee the Spurs opting to trade any of these picks. I think having the 4th and the 8th pick is a special opportunity to kind of tackle as an organization. I think of you're looking at these 2 sets of players that might be available. I think there's a couple of combinations of those guys that are really interesting. So I'll be getting into more on these players as the draft kind of approaches. I'll be talking about who fits best and who maybe has the highest potential. And I'll do a couple mock drafts as well. I'll probably end up doing 2 or 3 mock drafts by the time the actual draft comes around. So one thing that we know for sure is that this is awesome. This is just an awesome situation to be in for the Spurs to have 2 picks, and they can control their destiny with these 2 picks. Or if the Spurs are in the mindset to look at Trae Young, I think that's super interesting too. I mean, if you ask me, it makes so much sense, except for the one thing of like, it just doesn't fit the Spurs kind of MO, right? Their motto. Like, it's just not really what they do. Trae Young is a perfect fit next to Wimby, but is he a perfect fit in the organization? And I think those two things have to line up in order for that kind of vision to play out. And I don't know what they're saying in the offices over there, but that would be interesting to kind of be a part of those conversations. Dejounte Murray, I love Dejounte, but I think that's like kind of like a hard pass for me right now. I think he's off to like a different chapter in his career, and I feel coming back to San Antonio is just kind of like a step backwards for both of us, for him and us. And he's doing great. He had a great season this season, so good for him. I wish him all the best. I just don't think that it's a good fit either. It just doesn't really make too much sense for the Dejounte part. So we'll see what the Spurs brass are cooking up. One thing's for sure. They're going to do their due diligence every single step of the way. That they're going to evaluate, interview, and get to know all these players. And that's the part that we miss. Like the part that I'm missing out on all this is like I can go and look at their tape. I can look at their measurements. I can try to see some things that stick out as big things we need to keep our eye on why this player can fit well with the Spurs. But what really matters is their character, their work ethic, what their coaches say about them, what the player ex teammates say about them, what their parents and family members say about them. All those things matter. So just as equally as their physical attributes, which are also a big component to evaluation too. Us like I think the Spurs like to get guys that have a long road of like physical development potential, like either that's growing athletically or whatever. They like these guys who can really shape up in the next 2 or 3 years and become athletic monsters on the defensive end. I think that's a priority as well that we've seen over the past few drafts. So all that stuff matters, not just on how they played in the offseason. So that's all the stuff that they'll know that we don't know at this point. So, all that being said, it's going to be a great draft. This has been your Spurs preview. This is what we can expect over the next few weeks. We'll keep an eye out for the combine. We'll keep an eye out for any interviews that the Spurs are conducting with any of these players to try to give us more insight on what they're doing or where their mindset is like. So, all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Go Spurs, go. Have a good one, guys.